Afternoon, we're also learning new details about the victim. Ali Chiasson joins us live from outside the path near King and Bay. And Ali, what do we know about the man who's been charged?
Dwight, his name is Duncan O'Neill Sinclair. He is 19 years old, of Toronto. He has been charged with first-degree murder. Police made the arrest today. The OPP did. They found him in the Midland, Ontario area, so certainly far from the Toronto financial district here, where the scene of his alleged crime happened. So far, we don't have any word on the relationship between Sinclair and Carrington. Police have not gone on the record with that, but they have said from the beginning that this was indeed a targeted attack. And as you said, we're also learning a bit more about Carrington herself. We learned that she was homeless. I visited the women's shelter downtown where she was staying, and I spoke to some of the women who knew her, and they described the 51-year-old as very sweet. They said that she was a mother, and they are not only in mourning, so is the staff. We're not sure how long she was living there, but she did use those services downtown, and she will certainly be missed by the people who knew her. We spoke yesterday with people in her colleagues working in the food court, and they describe her in the same way. Very sweet, very kind, actually having a nickname for her, Ray of Sunshine. Now, this crime scene has actually been a hive of forensic activity and forensic investigators scrubbing the Fast Fresh where she worked. But now, as you can see, I'll step out of frame here, it's turned into a memorial. This was Carrington's workplace. Police say that the suspect fled up the escalator, which is right next door, and into the night, into the dark night of on Wednesday in the financial district, as we learned today, arrested far from there in Midland, Ontario. Just because an arrest has been made in this doesn't mean the investigation is over. It, of course, continues. The police want to hear from anybody who knows a bit more about the whereabouts and Duncan O'Neill Sinclair's behavior leading up to what happened here Wednesday night. I'll send it back to you, Dwight.
Thank you for that, Ali.
I'm Adrian Chung, outside of Trillium Woods Public School in Richmond Hill, where some parents are keeping their kids home from school after complaints about headaches and dizziness brought on, they say, by fresh paint on the walls. We'll have all the details, along with what the school has to say, coming up.
A day after the budget was tabled, the PCs are traveling across the province trying to sell the budget to the people of Ontario. One of the big ticket items, a childcare tax credit.
It would provide new childcare support for about 300,000 Ontario families. It'll make it easier for those parents to re-enter the workforce when they're ready.
Along with that tax credit, the PCs promised 30,000 new spaces for childcare across the province. It is a totally different plan than what the Liberals propose, free childcare for all preschoolers. The man behind that idea says the PC's new plan won't help enough families. Lisa Shing sat down with him.
What is your biggest issue with this new plan?
I don't like their plan very much for a number of different reasons. One of the reasons is it's not very generous. I think the issue is that there are a couple of major priorities in terms of childcare affordability, one with low-income families and the other one with families who have very young children. And this is not addressing those priorities, which require a lot of money per child.
It's on a sliding scale, though, so technically the lowest income earners would get back the most.
They certainly would get the most, but only if they spend the $8,000. On average, families will be getting $1,250. These are nice stories about people getting more, but they must be mostly stories because the average tells us there's not much assistance.
At least, ultimately, many families are getting back something.
They are, and certainly some families will be happy. But think about it. Mostly it's going to end up being the families that currently are using childcare. And they'll be happy that they got something back, anything back, because affordability is a crisis for many families, affordability of childcare. But from a social point of view, we really want to be able to help those who have the biggest affordability crisis and aren't able to access the labor force and aren't able to get their children into good care. And there isn't enough here to reach those families and those children. And so I would regard this as a bad design, a failure in design.
Is it an issue of quality?
If that family, that young mother probably, is able to get into the labor force, it would only be using the lowest quality, lowest cost possible care. Probably dangerous quality if it only costs $6,000 or $8,000 a year. So this is a big problem. You're not giving enough money to help the affordability problem where it's most acute. When you give a small amount of money, it encourages families to economize on quality.
Cleveland adds there are other models of childcare he supports. For example, in England, the government gives families a certain number of free childcare hours each week for preschoolers. Also in the budget, funding cuts for ministries in our province, including 15% less funding to the Ministry of Indigenous Affairs, something that concerns the federal government.
We are extraordinarily disappointed in the budget in that Indigenous rights and closing the gaps in socioeconomic outcomes is the responsibility of all governments, but all Canadians.
Many call the cut a step backwards for reconciliation. Opposition MPPs in Northern Ontario are also disappointed. They say the cuts into Indigenous affairs, in addition to cuts in natural resources and Northern development funding, will have a negative impact on Ontario's northern Indigenous communities.
They provide water quality testing. They make sure that we regulate food inspections, that we conduct vaccinations. I mean, when you reduce the level of health services, you reduce Ontarians' health. It's just that painful and simple.
The budget laid out plans to consolidate local health units, going from 35 to 10 of them. Critics are concerned because of the role the units play in battling infectious diseases, dealing with water inspections, and also vaccinations. Visiting a Toronto restaurant this afternoon, the Prime Minister got some laughs, commenting on one particular part of the provincial budget.
This community, right, this is a great place to come and grab a pint or come and grab a bite. A lot of them come here.
9 o'clock in the morning, apparently.
Yeah.
Big win for Ontario families right there.
The PM was meeting with parents at the Safari Bar and Grill on Avenue Road. He talked about the spending cuts in yesterday's budget and how his government is focused on measures to try to ease the financial burdens on families.
My name is Christine.
And the Toronto Maple Leafs have a 2-1 lead as Marner scores on the penalty shot.
Well, is that the epitome of patience there? It's just
a shorthanded penalty shot goal by Mitch Marner, just one of the highlights of a big night for our Leafs. They stole Game 1 of their Stanley Cup playoff series in Boston, outplaying their rivals who have beaten them in their last 2 playoff meetings. Game 2 goes tomorrow. And our Leafs won't be alone tomorrow. The Raps begin their postseason. The Jays, TFC, and the Marlies are also in action. Greg Ross is live outside Scotiabank Arena. And Greg, a dream day for sports fans, but a potential nightmare for drivers.
Yeah, well, representatives from the city are already urging people not to drive in this area of downtown tomorrow because it's going to be so busy down here. There's going to be people milling about because we're expecting there to be 2 tailgate parties right here on Bremner Boulevard. This part of Bremner, right in front of Scotiabank Arena, will be completely closed down. We expect the bars are going to be packed downtown as well. And it's all because sports fans have so much to choose from tomorrow.
What a great sports weekend in Toronto.
And the mayor kicking things off by raising flags for both the Leafs and Raptors in support of their playoff runs.
We are with them like never before.
It was like the calm before the storm in Maple Leaf Square / Jurassic Park today.
Tied at 1 game apiece.
But it'll be more like this at 5 p.m. tomorrow when the Raptors open their first-round series against Orlando at home. First-year Raptor Danny Green says he's looking forward to experiencing Jurassic Park for the first time.
I see the pictures in the hallway of Jurassic Park of how crazy it is, and I hear how loud it's going to get. Everywhere I go, people are yelling, good luck in the play. Let's see how much they're taking it just as serious as we are.
The Raptors were at their practice facility today for one more tune-up before the postseason officially starts. Coach Nick Nurse showing his love for another Toronto team, sporting a hat given to him by Leafs coach Mike Babcock.
It was nice of him. He wished me luck in the playoffs and left a couple, some Leafs swag in my office the other night, so thought I'd rep them today. And
here's Mitch Marner on a penalty shot.
The Leafs will look to take a 2-0 lead in their series tomorrow night at 8 p.m. when they square off with the Bruins in Boston.
I'd be lying if I wasn't saying I got the Maple Leafs game in mind the most.
Fans can watch both the Raptors and Leafs on the big screen outside Scotiabank Arena, but there are 3 other Toronto teams in action before they even start.
What a day to be a sports fan in Toronto.
What are you going to watch?
All of them, hopefully.
At 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, the Blue Jays host the Tampa Bay Rays at the Rogers Center. Then at 4 p.m., Toronto FC plays the Sounders in Seattle, while back here in Toronto, the Marlies host the Belleville Senators.
Tomorrow is just like a sports lover's dream. Oh, 100%. Like, you got every Toronto sports franchise going tomorrow. It's, I don't know how to explain it. It's great.
You could just sit on the couch all day and veg out and watch sports.
2 TVs going, the laptop going, get it all going. Sit back on the couch, crack some brewskis, hack some darts, and there we go.
So it's going to be a big week next week as well. There's going to be either a Leaf or a Raptors game almost every night next week, including home games here on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And that means that the square here is going to be packed on every one of those nights, Dwight.
Yes, it will be. Now, Greg, the Raptors, though, will be without a key player, maybe for the whole first round.
That's right, OG Anunoby. He had emergency surgery to remove his appendix last night. Talk about a bad timing for the 21-year-old. So that means he's not going to be available for at least the first little while in the playoffs. There is no timetable right now for his return, but definitely a guy that is a big part of that Raptors bench, and he's definitely going to be missed. A young player that really had a good year last year for the Raptors, a breakout year for the Raptors in the playoffs as well. Having to cover LeBron James, that was a pretty tough assignment, and they could definitely use him in these playoffs, but we don't know when that will be, Dwight.
Thank you, Greg.
You know, he's had a rough year, so it sucks. Feel for the guy, and we know he's an important piece, important part of what we do every day here. And you know, we're gonna need him at some point, so we wish him a speedy recovery. Hopefully he gets well.
This is a team with a lot of size and length, right? And OG's one of our size and length guys. So obviously it's gonna, you know, we're gonna miss him. And this is a really good team for him to be out there for us.
I guess the key for the Raptors is they do have their main starters that will be in the lineup. Kyle Lowry, Kawhi Leonard, they'll all be there. Danny Green, you heard from him. They're going to be there, and those are the guys the Raptors are really going to need when they kick off the playoffs tomorrow here in Toronto.
Yeah, hoping the Rafts and Leafs head deep into the playoffs. Thank you, Greg. Yesterday, at the end of the broadcast, as we were going into the game, our Carlette was repping the blue and white.
Yep.
With that dress yesterday, and we won, Carlette.
We won.
So tomorrow, we know you're off, but you got to wear blue and white again. You got to keep it going.
So I'm going to be sitting like on the couch in
blue
that
and
dress,
white.
cracking a brewski.
Maybe not the same dress, but blue and white. Got to rep the colors. It's working.
Don't you worry, but I got to rep my Raptors too. So what's a girl to do, right?
That's true.
That's okay. I'll figure out the wardrobe. Don't you worry about it. You know what? We finally figured out our temperatures. About time, right? This morning, 6 a.m., it was 4 degrees. So that was our overnight low as that temperature was rising. Then 7 degrees by 9 a.m., so about a degree an hour. And then there we were at 11 a.m., 13 degrees, that temperature really warming up. Okay, we had to contend with some showers moving through. It brought us down a couple of degrees, but it's been nice to kind of be in these double digits. And we also came down to about 10 and then back up to 12. We'll actually find the temperature may rise another degree or two before we go down to our overnight low because our wind's shifting around towards the southwest. These winds are going to be our best friend. So there go the rain showers. A few little isolated showers were hanging in behind this. But what we're really looking at is this area back here. This is our weather that's moving in for the next 24 hours. So we get into this area here. As that pushes in, it means a nice clearing trend overnight tonight, and it sets us up for tomorrow so nicely. 6 degrees tonight. That's 6 degrees above seasonal. Tomorrow afternoon, sunshine, 14 degrees, albeit breezy. It's going to be a beautiful day. I cannot say that for Sunday. A whole different ball game, shall we say? And I'll tell you all about that, Dwight, when I come back.
Thank you, Colette.
You're welcome.
Julian Assange remains in custody in Britain following his arrest yesterday. The WikiLeaks founder is awaiting sentence for breaking bail conditions set 7 years ago, and the U.S. is demanding he face charges there. But as Renee Filipponi reports, there are also calls for him to be released.
Julian Assange has spent his first night in custody after appearing in front of a judge here yesterday. Now, along with the charge of skipping bail in the UK, he's also faced with possible extradition to the US. His supporters are urging for his release, saying the charges are politically motivated. Officials with the Australian government are meeting with Assange, who is an Australian citizen. They say the extradition process is a matter between the US and the UK.
Look, Julian Assange will get the same consular support and assistance that any other Australian would receive. People's fame and doesn't make any difference on the impact of how these decisions are made. He's an Australian citizen. He'll have that support.
The debate over his future is becoming increasingly political. The central question, is Assange a hacker or a journalist? His lawyers intend to use the defense of free speech. Now, opposition politicians in the UK are urging the British government not to allow him to be extradited.
And I think there may be human rights issues in relation to Assange. He is, at the very least, a whistleblower, and much of the information that he brought into the public domain, it could be argued, was very much in the public interest.
Despite concerns raised by Assange supporters, if he was extradited to the U.S., American prosecutors would not be able to charge him with additional crimes. That needs to be done here before a decision to extradite can be made. Whatever the outcome of the British courts, Assange will have a chance to appeal, which means this could be a long legal battle. And it's not just the extradition he is fighting. He faces up to 12 months in a UK prison for breaching bail. And Swedish prosecutors are also considering reopening the case against him for sexual assault dating back to 2010. Renee Filipponi, CBC News, London.
Referring to celebrity figures or people that have made an impact and ultimately followed their heart or followed their dreams is what has always inspired me.
He's colorblind and left a pretty good job to become an artist. Now his work is going public. We'll have a preview of his exhibit for you after the break.
The weather update is brought to you by Train Extreme Conditions Testing. It's hard to stop a train, really hard. Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
Toronto's getting a blast from the past, and it's coming in the form of lights.
There's Vegas and Atlantic City and even Paris, but I don't think people think about Toronto when I think neon, but it's pretty clear that we do have a good history of neon, and we just got to bring it back.
The lights, known for their glow on Yonge Street decades ago, are making a comeback. SEMO and the downtown Yonge BIA decided to run a neon sign pop-up this week at the Junction House. It will feature many famous Toronto signs, including the one from former Friars Tavern and Canary Restaurant. Although the group is glowing about the pop-up, they say this is just the beginning.
We've started an organization called the Neon Museum of Toronto. Our vision is to have a permanent neon location, a gallery in Toronto, and we've sort of earmarked, we'd like to see it in Old City Hall when the courts move out, but that also a lot of the big outdoor signs we'd like to see in one of our laneways, Victoria Laneway between Shooter and Dundas Street.
The glowing pop-up opens today and runs until Sunday evening. He was born colorblind, landed a U.S. college baseball scholarship, and graduated with a degree in finance. But Anthony Ricciardi left a career at a Toronto investment firm to pursue his lifelong passion, art. The multidisciplinary artist counts celebs like Shaquille O'Neal and Demi Lovato as clients. Now he's opened up a pop-up spot at Yorkdale Mall to allow visitors to immerse themselves in his art. Marvel Touk paid a visit to Dream Space.
So what we've created here is we've taken an older industrial space inside a mall and put contemporary modern pieces of art onto the wall. So the vision was to have like this rougher space, you know, old brick wall with new modern images.
And also the use of either really well-known figures or historical figures, that they are so prominent in your artwork. And what's behind that, I'm curious?
I think that, you know, referring to celebrity figures or people that have made an impact and ultimately followed their heart or followed their dreams is what has always inspired me. My main goal about adding the writing is that every time, if an individual were to put this in their homes or in their offices or in their buildings, the goal is that every time you walk by, you'll find something that you didn't see before.
Well, and speaking of revealing something new, different, that brings us to this section.
For sure. So what we did was Yorkdale and I partnered up to we have our base canvases, and we wanted to create a space that took elements of those paintings and brought them into a three-dimensional state. We wanted to have a nice and open concept. That's why we kept it very fresh. As you can see, the green grass and having it like we wanted to create an experience that people walked into that they had never seen before, especially in a luxury shopping center like Yorkdale. This is the dream space where each of the installations are meant to inspire and get people to dream larger. So as you're walking through, one of the first things you have to do on your journey to following your dreams is dream larger than life. And so, people will be able to immerse themselves in the grass or in the things and act like they can plant their own seeds.
What is it like to be able to realize this space?
It's always been something that's been in my mind. Like I grew up painting, I grew up in arts. My uncle was an artist, and I took a lot of inspiration from him growing up. So I think for me, it's always been something that I wanted to do, but popular culture or just society will tell you, becoming an artist is not realistic, Anthony. Like, what, are you serious? Like, right? And the key driver to all that is true, consistent, and persistent effort and moving forward and continuing to dream and never giving up.
Marvel has the full story for you next week on Our Toronto. It usually airs Saturday and Sunday at noon, but the team is off this week. With outbreaks of measles a growing concern across the country, some doctors are warning it's not just children who need to be protected. If you were born between the 1970s and the mid-1990s, it turns out you could be at more risk than you thought. Cash Rusi explains.
Today, most physicians vaccinate.
When vaccines for measles were first introduced in the 1970s, a single dose in childhood was considered protection for life. At least that was the thinking back then.
As it turned out, that was good enough for about 85% of people, but about 15% of people would have a wearing off of the vaccine, and then they would become susceptible to getting the measles.
Meaning some people born between 1970 and the mid-90s could be unknowingly under-vaccinated today.
Those people may be walking around out there and they may be susceptible to measles and not realize it.
Some of them, she realized, were her own patients.
It looks like about a quarter of our practices may be made up of that cohort of people. It's a large group of people.
It could also be the case for other childhood infections like whooping cough or chicken pox. That's why a second shot, a booster for measles, became standard practice in the 90s. A surprise to many today.
I mean, my kids are vaccinated. That's definitely on my radar, but for myself, I just sort of assumed that I was protected. So now I'm going to go check.
Anthony Acab, born in 1975, didn't even know he needed a booster shot.
I'm assuming that it would be too late for the vaccination, or it's still possible.
A simple blood test can check your measles immunity.
The easiest and the safest and effective thing to do is just to be vaccinated. That's a very practical way of managing the uncertainty about immunization records.
Especially if you're traveling to places where measles might be circulating. Cass Rusi, CBC News, Toronto.
He said, Mom, I can't study at the school because the smell is so bad.
A group of parents have pulled their children out of a Richmond Hill school because the fumes from a painting job have been making some students feel dizzy and ill. We'll have that story for you next. Nearly a dozen students at a Richmond Hill public school were pulled out of class today after complaining about headaches and dizziness. They say it all started when the school began repainting the hallways earlier this week. Adrian Chung joins us live with more now. And Adrian, you spoke with the parents of some of these students. They're not happy about this.
Yeah, well, they say when it comes to their kids, they'd really rather be safe than sorry. Earlier this week, their children started coming home with complaints about headaches, feeling dizzy in class. And parents were told by the school 3 weeks ago that it would be repainting the hallways. They were assured by the York Region District School Board that it was using low-impact latex paint and that the project will last until May. But just days into repainting, several students said they were feeling ill, and parents say they're worried about what this means for their health. And they have questions too, like why a project like this isn't being done in the summer when students are away.
I'm very, very worried about, but the healthy is the first thing I think, of course. And I still worry about the next week, if the kids go back to school or stay at home. So we need answer as soon as possible.
If you're painting in your house, normally you pick up different seasons. For example, summer or hot day, you can open your windows, right? This way the ventilation system can get rid of all the old or strong smells. This is common sense.
Now, I spoke to York Region District School Board. It's responsible for 210 schools, all of which needs regular upkeep. Trillium Woods is on the schedule now for that repainting, what they consider low-level maintenance. And the school board says they have health and safety officials and that they always save the bigger projects for the summer. Dwight?
All right, thank you, Adrian. And remember, if you have a story you would like us to look into, just send us an email, torontotips@cbc.ca. Buildings were ablaze in Ottawa's famous Byward Market earlier today. It began on the roof of a restaurant just an hour before the main lunch rush. The roof soon collapsed, forcing firefighters to fight the fire from outside. The blaze spread to several buildings, which officials had evacuated. There are no reports of injuries. The Byward Market is a very popular area, often jammed with a lot of people on a Friday afternoon. And about 20 hours after it first started, firefighters were able to extinguish a stubborn fire at a scrapyard in Brampton this afternoon. The fire started in an industrial area on Intermodal Drive near Goreway and the 407 at around 5 p.m. yesterday. The cause of the blaze is still under investigation, but officials say it may have been sparked by workers as they were moving scrap metal around. No one was injured, but Brampton Fire warned residents in the neighborhood to close their windows and shut off ventilation systems as a precaution.
He is one of the greatest doubles players on the planet. She beat Venus Williams, but that was in tennis. This is pickleball. Still trying to figure out where the pickles are involved, but I'm going to beat them both.
Just practicing my stroke there, you know, with these pros today. That's coming up later. Don't laugh at me too much when it runs there,
I'm looking
Colin.
forward to seeing your moves there.
We could be outside playing some tennis tomorrow, right? The weather's going to be so nice.
Oh, for sure. We're looking at an amazing start to the weekend. It's been such an interesting thing because we've been feeling the impacts yesterday and today of the same massive storm system. And it's the same one that's been having the impact all across North America. And one of the biggest components to it has been the winds. Check out this video. This is from the Minnesota State Patrol. This poor trooper was actually directing traffic today when, yeah, sure, it's slippery, but it's not the iciness. Oh, it's the winds that take him down. Now, he was okay, by the way, and in fact, they had a real sense of humor about it. The State Patrol tweeted this out with the caption, "Wind 1, Trooper 0." And that's sometimes how it is with the winds, right? Well, they're going to be helping us out tomorrow, making that first half of the weekend very nice. It will be breezy. Again, the same massive storm system having the impact, but it's a southwesterly flow, and that's really going to make for a mild start to the weekend. And we're also going to see quite a bit of sunshine. Sunday, it's another system that's actually beginning to move in. We get into some very cold and wet conditions, and then next week, we're going to kind of have a recovery week. We'll rebound a little bit from it. So this is all that same system. So those rain showers we had earlier, yes, associated with it, those clearing off towards the east. A few isolated showers were left behind, but mostly that's moving out, and that gives us this nice clearing trend overnight tonight and sets us up for tomorrow. The temperature right now, 12 degrees. What a lovely evening. We're going to see that temperature hold a little bit, might even rise another degree before we start to fall towards our mild overnight low of 6. So the outlook, I don't even need to put pauses on this to run through tonight and through tomorrow. There's nothing to see. It's all good stuff. It's Saturday night into Sunday morning. I'm going to pause it at 6 a.m. because with the temperature right around 2, just above the freezing mark, we may see a little bit of mixed precipitation even down towards the lakeshore. It's possible before this becomes mostly a rain event Sunday for the GTA and some heavy rains at times and getting into a mix further north up into cottage country, maybe even some light accumulations of snow. Sunday later in the evening and overnight into Monday, we'll see this kind of clearing out, but on the back edge, we could get a dusting once again towards Monday morning of some of that mix. So those very strong winds for tomorrow, a little bothersome perhaps at times, but I think you're going to be enjoying the day, and some of those gusts over 50 kilometers an hour possible. Then it's more of an east to northeasterly and a nastier wind that we're going to see, but still gusty as we go through the second half of the weekend. Your overnight tonight, enjoy it, and enjoy tomorrow with all that sunshine and those beautiful high temperatures. And then just kind of, you know, there's lots to do indoors on Sunday, I guess, with the high of 4 degrees. There's our recovery. Temperatures will rebound as we're going into next week with a little bit of instability there left behind, Dwight. Can't wait to see those moves.
Thank you, Colette.
Yep.
McGill University's men's sports teams will no longer be called the Redmen. The school's principal announced it will be dropping the name after many people complained the term is racist and alienated the Indigenous community. Jay Turnbull has more now from Montreal.
Honestly, just so happy. After working at this for such a long time, it's an incredible feeling.
For more than a year, Tomasz Jarusek has led the push to change the Redmen name. The Alberta athlete competes on McGill's rowing team.
It's incredibly isolating to have a slur like the Redmen, slur like Indian, slur like Squaw used to describe a sports team, especially when sports is supposed to be this inclusive opportunity.
The name wasn't always so controversial. The school says it stemmed from colours worn by the team for almost a century and the Scottish roots of the university's founder. But eventually, it took on a different meaning. For a time, the team's informal nickname became the Indians, and women's teams, the Squaws. Uniforms were adorned with Indigenous symbols. Today, McGill says it was time to act.
It was based on the consideration of the feelings of people who are very attached to the name, also the feelings of people who, especially Indigenous peoples, who feel that they're disrespected by the name. It has become something that is a pejorative, and that's something that really strikes us as being difficult to keep now in 2019.
But not everyone is happy with the change.
It comes to a case of an easy target for the sake of political correctness without really making an impactful change on the ground.
So what about other sports teams? There's been a push for the CFL's Edmonton Eskimos to change its name. The team says it has been consulting with Indigenous groups for months and isn't ruling it out.
We absolutely want to get things done properly and then make proper decisions, not quick decisions.
McGill's men's teams will have a new name by the start of the 2020 school year. Jay Turnbull, CBC News, Montreal.
McGill's decision is being hailed by the Prime Minister's office as a positive step in Canada's relationship with First Nations. A statement from the PMO says all Canadians have a role to play in achieving reconciliation. It is an issue that we must all address in real and concrete ways. It goes on to say we commend actions taken by institutions and communities across Canada to advance reconciliation.
Daniel Nestor, Canadian tennis great. First of all, what do you think of pickleball, Mr. Nestor?
Definitely different than tennis.
The big question I have, Karen, where are the pickles? It's one of the fastest growing sports in Canada, and chances are you've never even heard about it. This is pickleball. After the break, I play with two Canadian tennis powerhouses and tell you where the sport got its name. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Toronto's first major pickleball championships are on the way on the 10X courts at Hotel X on the exhibition grounds. I took on recently retired tennis pros Daniel Nestor and Sonia Gilsian. Even Milos Raonic stopped by, but I think he was afraid to play me. Not. The big question I have, Karen, where are the pickles?
Lots of people have a pickle in their bag because it's actually good anti-inflammatory, the pickle juice. But no, pickleball actually is named after either a pickle boat or a dog named Pickles that used to chase after the ball. So 1964, some congressman in the state of Washington came home and invented this game.
What is the fascination? Why do you think people love it so much? And it seems to be a generational thing because I see young people here, I see older folks here, everybody.
Well, it's fast and furious for one. A lot of people got into the sport after they had maybe played tennis. They started getting old and maybe couldn't run around as much. So I think that's where the game evolved from.
So when we're slicing at the ball, you can kind of lose control pretty quickly, right? So there's not a lot of room for error in pickleball, right? We're only 44 feet from baseline to baseline and 20 feet wide, right? Versus the tennis court, which is obviously much bigger, right? So really focusing on that direction of paddle face, that contact. This green line here, right? A little bit different, right? It's called the non-volley zone line, which defines the non-volley zone. So you can't be standing in this zone and play the ball out of the air, right?
I don't know if this is going to help my game, but we're going to try. So I don't bounce it, I just hit it right up. What do you think of this thing? I mean, you're on the circuit, you're a tennis pro.
It's good for smacking butts.
Yeah, now that you're a mom, now you're talking like you're a mom. What do you think of it?
You know what? This is the first time that I've actually touched pickleball, been on a pickleball court, and it's great. I'm sweating, and the brain is completely having to shut off.
Because you're so used to tennis.
Tennis, the rules. Like serving volley, you can't do that. You gotta let it bounce in a certain zone and all those different rules. Now you can see the real tennis players if we're really smart or not.
See, that's why I think I actually have a chance at beating her, because I'm not a real tennis player, and maybe this pickleball thing will work in my favor.
Yeah, if you're like, you know, scientist, academic, this will really work in your favor.
It's harder than it looks. All right, we're here.
It's definitely different than tennis. You can swing as hard as you can. It doesn't really feel like it's going that fast, but it's a lot of fun. You know, it's some good exchanges and nice change of pace from tennis.
Wow. Yes, we got one. Got one. That's Daniel Nestor. That's Daniel Nestor. You know that, man. So Milo showed up, but you know, I hear he's injured, so he can't play today. But you're just here to support some of the fans.
Yeah, it's good to see another racket sport growing, and I think it's nice to come out and support it. See a few professional players here. You get to see Daniel as well. I haven't seen him for a while now since he's not on tour, so it's nice to stop by.
So next year, if you're not injured, you know, I had a little lesson today. Could we get a game next year, you think?
Well, you're ahead of me on hours put in on court.
You've
so
never
never played, so I gotta play some catch up, and you know what? Maybe I'll take some time. I don't want you getting too far ahead.
Thank you, buddy. That was fun. I'm gonna quit while I can still breathe.
Thank you,
So
Ken.
I'm Eli Glasner, and there is a new Hellboy movie, a new version with a new actor. I'll talk about whether we needed that new movie, but perhaps more importantly, there's also a first look at the trailer to the upcoming Star Wars film, and I'll try and deconstruct and contain my excitement coming up on CBC News Toronto.
the saga is coming to an end. The teaser trailer for Star Wars Episode 9 is here, and so is Eli.
Did you see her leaping
that
over?
That was incredible.
Come on.
You saw the whole thing for the Rise of the Skywalker.
3 times, 4 times
Obviously,
so far.
You liked it.
I mean, I'm excited. Look, Avengers. That's what I'm saying now. Well, maybe not quite yet, but I'm psyched. I'm excited. It's interesting because you had The Last Jedi, and actually there was a bit of a blowback to Last Jedi, directed by Rian Johnson. Some thought he went too far. Now we have J.J. Abrams, who did the movie before, so is he going to keep moving further forward in the Star Wars future, or still more backwards? But I'll tell you, we start to see some things. Maybe we'll see it in this footage. Lando Calrissian and Billy D. Williams.
Billy D is back?
He's back in the cockpit for the Millennium Falcon. That alone, so I'm there for that. Very excited. Some interesting teases in the rise of Skywalker, but it makes me wonder. The last film suggested that Rey, Ridley's character, she was just an orphan. She's not really a Skywalker. So now what are they doing, boy?
Yeah.
Where do we stand?
Yes.
Who is she? Is she a Skywalker? But interesting little detail in this trailer. They say we hear Luke's voice. No one ever dies. So
not even Luke.
Well, you see, we actually see Leia, and they've been at the Star Wars celebration in Chicago, saying that they've been in the editing booth. Let's just enjoy that one more time. Yeah. There you go. They've been in the editing booth with Leia, with Carrie Fisher, so enjoying their time, kind of really. And so we know she'll make an appearance. And yeah, there you go. Let's wait for the. There you go. Little Lando, come on now.
I saw Billy D. Billy's got to be like 100 now. Okay, so moving on.
You age differently in space.
Yes, you do. Big Red Man.
Yes.
Eli, why is there a new Hellboy movie?
That's what I was saying in the theater. Many times. Hollywood is going to Hollywood, right? They're always going to reboot and reimagine.
Regurgitate.
So, exactly. We'll get to that. Don't jump ahead. So here we go. New director, Neil Marshall, known more for horror. Same kind of hero. He has horns. He's red. He's a demon, but he's on our side fighting the forces of evil. And there's an evil queen played by Mila Jovovich, who is trying to take over the Earth once again. And then we meet his father, adopted father, played by Ian McShane, who gets a call for help from a British secret society. Let's take a closer look.
The British Occult Society, formed in 1866 by the ranking members of the Heliopic Brotherhood of Ra.
Ra? I met Ra once in the underworld. He was a close talker.
Well, like us, they fight against the forces of darkness, and our organizations have a long-standing relationship. They're old friends of mine, and they've requested your assistance with a giant problem.
Oh, yeah? What's that?
Giants.
Little known fact, Hellboy, a lot of protein. I mean, you got to keep that physique up. So there you go, another day at the office for Hellboy as the Blood Queen is trying to seduce him to her side.
Okay, what is the biggest difference between the Hellboy we know and this new Hellboy?
Geysers of blood.
Ooh.
I mean, they have given Hellboy this heavy metal, gory, horrific makeover that he certainly didn't ask for and I didn't ask for. There's, for example, a psychic character who projects spirits by projecting her own internal organs that take the form of, the dead. And then the Blood Queen starts feeling her oats, and you see, I mean, where do you want to start? The viscera, the skewering, the beheadings, slicing and dicing, all for our displeasure on camera. And it's interesting because you compare that. Let's go back to the 2004 film from Guillermo del Toro.
Yes.
Toronto's own, can we say?
Yes, he's here now.
He loves monsters, loves the spooky stuff, but he has a sweet side. So it was a nice combination, especially with Ron Perlman, who played the first version of the Man in Red. Now we have a new Hellboy played by David Harbour. You might know him as Sheriff Hooper from Stranger Things.
Yes.
Now, as you know, I was on the carpet, so I had a chance to ask him, why Hellboy? What's the connection with you and that character? Take a listen.
He's, he's a bit of a punk who's like trying to find his way and struggling with his own identity and his own flaws and his, out there in a sort of way. And I mean, that's sort of been my trajectory. And I don't mind that. I mean, I like being a little messy, and I think that that's just kind of who I am.
So I get that, and I like him as an actor. I respect what he's doing, but he's a serious actor. He's trying to almost do the method thing for Hellboy, and the result is a Hellboy that's kind of sullen and laconic and, upset, dealing with his daddy issues, and then slowly going back into battle. But the battle isn't the rivers of blood. It's actually the musty one-liners that should have stayed buried with the Blood Queen. So there you go. Do not watch it. I wouldn't recommend unless you're the most die-hard fan. 2.5 stars for Hell guy.
Waiting for Star Wars.
Yeah, we're waiting. Holiday treat.
Thank you, Eli.
You're welcome.
Annie was thinking what she can do. She knew that now she can have the same life as she used to.
English may not be their first language, but today these newcomers became published authors. More on that after the break. It's every writer's dream having your words published for others to read. But for these ESL students from Greenwood Secondary School, being a new author is extra special. Take a look.
The students, they learn to engage with their imagination. They learn the skills that they need to write a story. And then they learn how to put together a book. And at the end, they get their own published chapter book. He was writing something really special. These are the kind of philosophical pieces about really big things.
I want to say is home is not a building. There are your parents. There is your home. The home is from our parents.
第二章他继续说道，渐渐的 ，Ellie 和 Jack 变得越来越熟悉彼此。
Annie was thinking what she can do. She knew that now she can have the same life as she used to.
I read this book is hope. Now the society, I hope the parents can more care about their children. It's not just for working.
A big part of this, I think, is confidence. They really grow their confidence in their ability to write. They're interested in what they can create. It's a form of creative expression. So they get to find out what's inside of them, and sometimes it's really surprising.
There was no one there. No one saw her. She went to the backyard alone. She was crying and her body was shaking. I had to think about that. How can I show people that they have to think well before they act for their life?
A good way is I started to learn how to independent, and I can take care of myself. I have a lot of trouble in the life, and I also believe that other people also might have same experience with me, so I want to share my experience to help them.
This is your GTA. April showers bring May flowers, but the rain isn't stopping this couple from taking a stroll downtown. Thanks to Ashton for this shot. Remember to get your photos to us by posting them on Twitter or Instagram with the hashtag CBCYourGTA, and we will try to air some of them on the show. And it is appropriate, Colette, that we had a rainy shot today because we got some rain on the way.
Oh, yeah, that's right. And, you know, I like how they made it romantic. He had the yellow umbrella. She's in the yellow rain
Singing
jacket.
in the rain.
There you go, a little Gene Kelly. All right, we do have some rain in the forecast, but it's coming on Sunday. And in the meantime, we are going to have some lovely conditions. So no active weather tonight. Overnight clear skies, 6 degrees, so a very mild overnight. Average at this time of year is a low around 0. And with the southwesterly winds, tomorrow the temperature going up to 14 degrees with lots of sunshine, just a few clouds. It will be breezy, however, those winds gusting 40, even 50 kilometers an hour or over at times. So if you're putting out the lawn furniture and the cushions, you might have to hold on to them just a little bit. But Sunday's a whole different story. Another system's moving in, and we might see a little bit of a wintry mix and then mostly a rain event. And it'll be a cold rain.
So when you have the hats at Maple Leaf Square or Jurassic Park, whatever you're calling it, they might be blowing on. So hold on to those Leafs hats and the Raptors hat. That's it for us for tonight. Thank you for watching. Mike Wise has your next local news at 11. He'll have you covered all of next week, too.
Go Leafs, go Raptors.